Anyway, my background, originally, I took classes from this gentleman called Kan Komai, and he was I would say my main sensei, and he was one of the instigators of design and display in the California Bonsai Society Club. He was the first one to make all those masters put their trees together the right way. And so he, before he did this for California Bonsai Society at the Museum of Science and Industry, all these trees were lined up like a nursery, you know, they're just, and so now he helped them to put them together in a formal display, a more pleasing display. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is this word keisho. It's a Japanese word which means shape, but in Oriental art it signifies also the properties. It's a law which enforces, among other things, canons of good taste and suppresses all exaggerations in artistic peculiarities and grimaces. This was like a translation from this guy in 1909. But anyway, keisho is kind of design, shape, is what it means. And the art of design and placement and display is called keido. Keido comes from that root word keisho. And it's a Japanese art of formal display. Originally, the formal display was done in a tokonoma. You all know what a tokonoma is, right? Because you guys have it at the shows. And so, let me give you a little background about that. A tokonoma in a Japanese house is an alcove. It's an area where we display nature. It's usually in a receiving room, like maybe a living room of a Japanese home. And it's at floor level, because everybody sits on the floor, the tatami mat. Well, tokonoma, a lot of times will have a scroll or a seasonal flower arrangement to accentuate that time of year. And because it's on the floor, when we're kneeling on the tatami mat, we're seeing it like right at eye level. So that's when we display our trees in a show, they're called seki kazari, or tabletop displays. So our shows are seki kazari, okay? So anyway, I want to show you some things here. I got some pictures of, I was hoping to have a whiteboard so I could kind of sketch out things for you, but we're going to have to do it on the table. Okay, so things to remember about a formal display is the key is serenity or simplicity. Okay, like I said earlier, the tokonoma was originally used to create this arrangement, seasonal flavors, and bring it into the house. And before the mid-1800s in Japan, it was unlawful to have a tokonoma. You think, I want a tokonoma, everybody has to. But it was only the social elite that had tokonomas in their houses or palaces. So there was a law that was passed in the 1865-ish there that allowed the commoners to have this tokonoma. Okay. So the onset of everybody, or many people having tokonomas, allowed more ideas and thought for bringing in native or natural things from that season. And it allowed more discussion for displaying things together socially acceptably. And so started in the 1800s. Okay, so originally a tokonoma would have a scroll in the center. Okay. And then maybe some kind of art object, like could be a flower arrangement, or in this case, a bonsai. And then the third object could be an accent grass that we use, or it could be a little sculpture. So we use this idea in a lot in Asian art of what's called heaven, man, and earth. Heaven, in this case, is a scroll. Man is the bonsai tree. And then earth is maybe the accent or a little figurine. Okay. It's called, heaven is ten, man is jin, and earth is chi. So now, since we have seki kazari, tabletop displays, we kind of do mostly, we don't always have a tokonoma to display it. I guess stay away from that speaker. I don't have a tokonoma to display it, so we display a tabletop. So in a seki kazari, the bonsai becomes heaven. Heaven. The secondary tree, or maybe the accent, or it could be a suiseki, becomes man or jin. And then the little grass or kusamono becomes earth or chi. Okay, let's see, let me make sure I cover everything here. So we're going to put together different displays, but before we get there, I dug out of my archives, and I know you're not going to see, well, maybe you could show this. Okay.
Of course.
You want to come over here? Okay, so this is a crabapple. Okay. So every tree has a front, and every tree has a lean to it, one way or the other. Okay, so this tree has a lean, starts from here, and it goes this way, toward this side. Okay. So if we have this on a bonsai table, or seki kazari, we'd put it on this side, and then we'd have all the accent plants over here. Okay. Now this one looks really uniform. It's hard to tell where the tree is leaning. But because this artist put this tree in a pot where there's more space on this side, that means that tree is would be headed in that direction, toward the accent, or the suiseki or whatever. Okay? So they all have a lean. This one looks very, very hard to kind of decide really how that lean is going to be. But technically, this main tree is leaning this way, but all the branches and the head, and they call atama as the head, it's moving in that direction. So if we had this tree on a bonsai stand, it'd be here. You can't come on this side. It'd be here, and then all our helper plants would be on this side. Okay, so I've got a couple more. Okay, so this is Yoseiwe. It's maybe a needle juniper. Oh no, this is a Izumatsu, Izu spruce forest. Okay, it looks like, that could be either side, right? Okay, so this one here, the lean is actually this way, in this direction. So you'd have your minor plants over here. Here's a masterpiece rock planting. because it's kind of like the trunk is in the pot here, and more space is on this side, then if you had this with accent plants, the accents would be over here on this side. And this one's pretty obvious to see. It's actually leaning in the direction. So if you had it on the bonsai stand, it'd be here, and your accents would be over here. Okay, so just a little thing to warm you up while you're thinking here. So usually in our accent or in our table displays, we usually have a main tree. You could have a secondary tree, and then and usually it's like three items. Okay? So say if you could picture this, your main tree, your secondary tree, and maybe a grass. In a true formal display, we tend to, because we're getting rid of the scroll, we usually just have the main tree and the accent. But it's acceptable to have 3-item display. Okay. So the main tree should be the highest point on any Seki Kazari. Should be the highest point. And then your, let's say, okay. Let's take a suiseki, for instance. A suiseki should be, let's see if I got this right. A suiseki should be, I'm sorry, I gotta go on the other side here. Am I gonna get buzzed with a speaker?
Lindsay,
Yes?
could you explain suiseki to people who might not know that?
Okay, suiseki is a viewing stone. They could be mountain stones. They could be shaped like a waterfall, have a waterfall in it. They could be like a figure stone, like a, I don't know, year of the boar. It could be a boar's head, something like that. And okay. So the three, is that clear enough, or is that okay? So this is a suiseki, like a mountain view. Okay, your accent plants or tsunamono should be on the lowest level. Okay, so it's almost like you're going down a path, you're hiking along a trail, and you see this real beautiful tree, and you go, wow, that's exciting, that looks like my bonsai at home. And you go, oh. And then so that becomes your main tree. Then maybe in the background is your suiseki, your mountain stone. And usually, I don't know, you can't really see it, but the mountain stones are usually in back of the middle line to kind of symbolize depth in the distance. And then your accent plant is usually in the foreground of the middle line. So it's like you're walking along this path and you see this beautiful tree, and in the background you see this mountain range. You're trying to create this scene, right? This is the whole idea. And in the foreground, at your feet, you see this little kusamono arrangement. And so that's what this is all about, putting these together like this. I'm a little...
Real quick question.
Yeah.
So, should you be able to take all this in one glance instead of having to pan across the whole scene?
Say that again?
Should you be able to, if you're the viewer,
Yes.
and you're viewing it at maybe 6 or 8 feet away from the table, or 5 feet or something, should you be able to see the whole scene in one glance, or is it acceptable to pan across?
Oh, I'm glad you put that up. Okay, so yes, you're supposed to be able to see the whole scene at one glance. And the reason why we spend so much time about how the trees lean Now this is kind of a small tree for this arrangement, but let's take that tree for example. Okay, so this tree here is actually moving around, has a lot of momentum, but the lean is this way, okay? And the reason why we talk about leaning so much is that we want to make this whole composition have your eyes in the middle. So the tree leans this way, and these guys lean this way. So you're supposed to be able to see the whole composition with your eyes kind of ending up in the middle. And that helps solidify this arrangement to make it cohesive as one. Okay? So, okay, let me tell a little story here. One of the times we went to Japan, and if you ever get to go to Japan, it's a good idea to go to a onsen. It's a hot springs hotel. Oh, it's so great. I have good feelings when I think about it. Anyway, so you go to a hot springs hotel, and you get in there, and you go down to the hot springs area, and there's men's and women's, okay? Now they're men and women, but most of the time it says men's and women, and you have to know what that reads on the sign, otherwise you might be embarrassed. So you get in there, you take a bath first. They usually have like a little stool you can barely get up from, and you shower, you take a little bath, and then you soak in the hot springs, and it's like mineral bath. So you relax, and then you come back to your room, and then the room is converted to your dining room. So you'll be sitting on the floor, but and there'll be like a big table, and in front of your spot, well, a lot of times they'll put pillows where you're supposed to sit. So in front of your spot, there'll be all these dishes. And it's not like here where we have a set of dishes that match everything, the cup and saucers and the big plates and the drink cups and everything, they all match. Well, they're concerned about each morsel looking good in that plate that it's presented in, okay? So there may be maybe 12 different dishes in front of you. You gotta have rice too, you got rice. And 12 different dishes in front of you, and each one is displayed, like this certain kind of fish is displayed in a certain color dish, so it makes that pleasing, okay? And this one over here, this eel over here looks good in this plate, and they're all different. Okay, so keep that in mind. In bonsai display, we only have maybe 3 items that we're working with, okay? So when we're putting it together, and you need to kind of give this some thought, when you're putting it together, you want to have each of the items contrasting. And hopefully it'll make that particular plant or suiseki stand out really well. Okay. So, so we have 3 items we're working with. Maybe 2 of the items have pottery, okay? So it'd be a good idea to think about this, have one that's unglazed, and maybe have one that's glazed, okay? We have 3 different kind of stands. We have the scroll stand, which is dark. We have this wooden stand, and I put it up here because this is more the height you want for this arrangement, or this tree. And we have a little slab stand, which is different. So we're trying to make these morsels stand out and become pleasing to look at individually, but altogether, when you look at it with your eye in the middle, it makes your senses more interested in this overall composition. Okay, so many times we have 8-foot tables. That's why I brought another table over here. But when we place this, okay, let me back up. When we raise this tree up, what happens is this next accent plant or suiseki needs to fall off the fall of the foliage. So it'd be like right in here. Okay? So in order to do that, if we had this tree down low on the table, you couldn't get the spacing between items. So this one is here. This one's in a little more in the foreground, something like that. Okay. So that's how, like all of these, let me go back a little bit.
So you're kind of thinking in triangles, in triangle shape?
Yes. Oh yeah. Forgot. So, yeah, that's a good idea. I forgot to mention that. So triangulation not only is in your bonsai, but it's also in the display. And this is almost like a triangle. It's like here, here, and here. Sometimes we have maybe a secondary tree. Let's see, let me get one here. Maybe, yeah, this will probably work. So this is not quite, it's a little farther. Now, when we have another bonsai tree, okay, so this is kind of a triangle, but it's a reverse triangle. It's the points on the bottom. But when we have a secondary tree, it should be maybe half or less than half the size and mass of the main tree. Okay. Otherwise, if it's too big, the secondary tree, it competes with the main tree, and you kind of lose focus on what you're really accentuating. So contrasting pottery, contrasting stands, it seems like they would work together. Did I mention about the triangulation in Japanese art form? Okay, so let me just digress a little bit. So the triangulation is not only in the bonsai, it's in flower arranging. We have heaven, man, and earth in the branching of the flower arrangement. Also, in landscaping, there's, when we place the stones in the Japanese garden, they sometimes have 3 rocks or stones together, and you do like heaven, man, and earth that way. In Sumie or Japanese or Asian art, there's also the arrangement of mountains, you know, like scenery. There's mountains. Would be heaven. There'd be maybe some trees on the mountain, would be man, and maybe there'd be a water feature, would be earth. So this whole concept of heaven, man, and earth is so repetitious in Asian art. Let's, for right now, let's stick with this main olive tree, and I'd like to get a volunteer to. We're going to rearrange this. Okay, who would like to come? Oh, we got a volunteer part, right, okay. So you have a lot of choices here. No, we're gonna leave that one there. But we're gonna start with putting together stands and to go along with this.
Oh, you want me to actually do it?
Yeah. He stood up, right? He was a real, I was surprised how excited he was. You could just do an exit grass. You don't have to have another tree. That's totally acceptable. Okay, what do you think? Yeah?
Is the one leaning away?
Yeah. There we go. That's going toward the main tree. Good eye. Okay.
You repeated the same shapes on the smaller tree and the accent. There should be
Okay.
different shape pots.
Yeah, I think maybe a flatter pot for or planting for the accent. Maybe, let's see. What was it? Maybe something like that. You could use this. Is that too big? What do you think? Is that better? Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a lower level too. It makes that.
Shapes, pots. No. Complementary.
Orientation shape for the accent,
What's that?
accent plan, should it be turned the other way or?
This one here?
Yes.
Well, okay. So in this instance, when you have another little tree, this accent becomes conforming to the secondary tree.
Secondary tree.
Okay. So that kind of goes together. And then this whole thing here goes together with this tree. They don't all, I mean, you could go, you're talking about going like this. Yeah. Well, it's acceptable, but I think in this particular instance, it's part of this, and then this is part of this whole composition. Very good, very good. All right. Okay, let's do another one. Okay, think about, you want to volunteer?
Well, I'm asking a question.
No, I think you're volunteering.
I'll ask a question while I'm
Okay.
You've talked a lot about contrasting elements, and I'm
Yes.
doing the same thing. Is there anything where you want it to be the same? So like you talk about that suiseki being a mountain. Do you want to put that with a mountainous tree, or should it be contrasted against, like a field tree?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, so the mountainous suiseki. Okay, yeah, you want the feeling to be homogeneous. So the suiseki, because it's kind of a rugged thing, the tree could be a rugged thing too. Yeah, you kind of want to have that same feel. You want to put together an arrangement? We could do whatever you like to do. We've got all these to choose from.
Yeah.
You can't take them home, but. A lot of times these bamboo mats are often used to represent water, you know, kind of a feel of water. And in this arrangement here, you would want this to be the top, and it would go this way. Okay. This would be wrong, yeah, that way. So it'd be like that. These two are like the bamboo. You know, you'd have it like this in this arrangement.
Is it also water?
No, not necessarily. Just mainly because of the bamboo kind of is represented. This reminds me of, you know, some Japanese gardens have these water bridges, and they zigzag back and forth, so the demons can't follow you. Right?
That's right.
Yeah, it's good luck.
Always
Yeah.
gotta keep those demons in mind.
Lindsay, can you comment on what was the right and the wrong way of the bamboo?
Of this one?
Yes, please.
Okay, so if this accent, this tray was used with this tree, you'd have it this way.
Why?
Because this goes forward, this comes a little bit forward of the,
It points in the direction of the primary tree.
yeah, and you have this cutout section here is where your main tree is. So it'd be like this.
Ah, got it. Thank you.
Okay. So what do we think? What do we think? There's contrasting pots. Huh? Well, they're all round,
Yeah, I was
you know, so maybe,
There's no square accent plants really, except the one we've used already. And the
Yeah.
ones we have are kind of tall, so I
They
couldn't
are,
find
huh?
anything square.
yeah, that's kind of hard, huh?
And I think all the trees and oval pots are a bit too big to go with the one that's there, so.
Yeah, that's kind of hard.
Change the secondary tree.
Yeah, we could change a tree, secondary tree. Okay, another thing too, when you're putting trees together, is you want to have. It's ideal if it's not a winter silhouette show, is to have a conifer and maybe a deciduous tree together. That's a great combination, contrast. Let's do another one.
It's different enough. Either
Let's
it's
do a different one.
I had a question about combining deciduous with evergreen
Yeah.
as the main tree and secondary. Would you have the conifer on the top
Yes.
and the deciduous tree as the secondary tree?
Right, kind of like they do with shohin. They have the conifer at the top because of elevation. So ideally, if you're thinking about the whole picture and thought, the conifer should be at the highest point. Perfect. Yeah, that's a good thing. Okay, someone else. Let's do one more. All right, we got a volunteer. So you could change anything you like up here. It doesn't have to be 3 items, it could be just 2 items. It's up to you. Would you like this one? This is a nice one too. Okay. Spider webs.
Oh, would you say that this is going as well?
Oh, you're looking at the front?
This is the front.
I think it's that way. Yeah. Because the lowest branch is on that side.
Yeah.
Pretty neat basket pot. Huh?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Looks like it'd be days.
Yeah, it looks. Right, those two? Okay. It's coming down like that. Yeah, that's about right. And then we want the, we want the little,
I want to put the roots in the back there sticking out a little bit. It's got a good view of this guy poking out.
oh, that way?
That way.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, okay, great. So your little accent is saying hello to the main tree. Okay, what do you think? Yeah, we have different kind of stands, colors, different, one's an oval pot, one's a basket pot. Oh, it's beautiful. The last thing we need to think about is that sometimes when we're displaying our main tree, we don't want to have an accent or a kusamono that has really huge foliage or is too tall, because it takes away from the main tree. So it's almost in proportion. So the accent foliage should be smaller. This is okay. It's this is small, but sometimes you get these big fat foliage, and it just looks out of balance. It looks like you didn't see that along the path as you're walking along. For me, I like one kind of plant in a accent pot, personally. Mainly because I can't keep them all looking good together. So one dies out, and then it's like, oh, I gotta But anyway, I like one. It's simpler. But I think for Americanized bonsai, like we all are living under, I think a variety is nice, especially if you're only having 2 items like this. I think it makes it interesting. Yeah. So makes your eyes light up, So that's my opinion. I do like simple. I do like individual, just one kind of accent plant in a pot. Oh, I got to mention this. I'm glad you mentioned that. California Bonsai Society, they have these, you probably have club rules and stuff for displaying, right?
No?
Not written down?
No.
Okay, well, one of the things, and this maybe will help stick a little bit, is in one of the rules of display, it says 3 item display rules. Medium to smaller bonsai, 15 to 20 inches in height, may be displayed with a secondary tree approximately 1/2 to 2/3 the height of the main tree. So when we're doing a 3-item display, it's usually smaller trees. It wouldn't be a huge tree, and then you have another tree. There's smaller trees altogether. So they start out smaller, 15 to 20 inches, and then the secondary tree is maybe 1/2 to 2/3 the mass of the main tree. Okay, 8 to 12 inches in height. It's strongly advisable to have one tree, a conifer, and the other a flowering or deciduous type tree in a 2-tree display. In addition, you need one other item of accent planting, grass, seasonal flower, or a smaller suiseki. Please note that the 3-item displays are optional and only 2 items are preferred to optimize the 8-foot. See, we have 8-foot tables. 8-foot table space. So that's another reason why we elevated so much, so we could kind of utilize the space of a bigger table.
Is that on the website for the California Bonsai Society,
I think it's in a secret sheet.
Requires a password?
It may be, I kind of doubt it though. And a cascade tree is classified as a larger tree. And it says at the end here, please strive for simplicity.
I think that makes sense because your very first example with the large olive, it just is so, it attracts so much of your attention that the secondary tree is just not going to get if it's really small. It just dominates.
Yeah.
Especially when we hardly look at the second.
Right, right, yeah, you kind of, we want to see that tree.
Yeah.
Very good, thank you. Another question?
I have a stand that I haven't used for display yet. Reminds me of a moon shape. It's got a curve, it's for shelving.
Shohi, okay,
And it has 3 shelves.
okay.
So well, you said earlier that the conifers are always the primary tree, so I
Try to-
cannot put deciduous on the top shelf. I would need to use a conifer on the top, something smaller on the lower shelf,
Ideally.
and what happens with the 3rd bottom shelf?
Well, that could be a figurine, or it could be a small suiseki. Yeah.
But not a plant.
I think it might be too much for that arrangement together. So something entirely different, I think
What
would
about
be
an
better.
accent? Would it have an accent?
Oh, you could do a simple accent, sure, sure, that would be okay, yes,
What about groves? Say like a grove on a slab,
okay.
like that.
Well, you see that a lot because a lot of people have these Yosei the Grove group plantings in such a big pot that they don't have the correct stand for it, and that should be elevated. I don't feel that the Yosei arrangement should be on the lowest level. It still should be elevated some. And then the other parts of the display should be at different levels, descending from there. Yeah. I think you see that because people don't have a stand big enough. Say, well, I gotta have a stand. So, oh, I got that slab over there. You know, that's what happens. But I really feel that should be elevated too.
Not just by itself, with nothing, not just the slab or multi-planting.
Okay. Now that's a different story. If you have a tree that's a masterpiece tree, okay, I'm going to put it in these terms. A masterpiece tree that could stand alone by itself. We had one year at CBS show. It was a beautiful grafted. It was a California, but it was grafted with shinpaku on it. It was gorgeous, and that was a standard little tree. That was on a slab, and so that could be on a slab by itself. So you don't have to elevate it because you're not taking into consideration the other elements. But if it's one tree, that could be on a slab.
What I was referring to is actually a slab planting, like a grove on a granite slab.
Oh, okay. What about that?
Can that be just set on the table, or does that need to be elevated, or can that be just by itself?
Okay, so say if it's a standalone arrangement, then and it's big enough, then it could be on a slab by itself. But if it's even a rock planting or slab, that needs to be elevated. If it's more smaller, yeah, it should be elevated. Okay, any other questions? You again. Okay.
So in the hierarchy of stands, the slab is considered the least formal kind of stand.
Right, being that it's irregular and natural.
Like something that you only want to match with something that's real crazy looking, informal.
Right.
So you're relatively limited in terms of what you can use with the stand because of its informal nature, right? Somewhat limited.
Right. Yeah, so a forest, well, I mean, if you had a formal stand, let me back up a little. A formal stand tends to be maybe like a glaze like this that's shiny, or these are more formal as opposed to drop this thing. even though this is black, this tends to be less formal than this kind of stand. Okay.
So what happens is because everybody is sort of dollar conscious about stands, their first stand is usually a slab because it's cheaper to purchase
Right,
versus a table.
right,
So the beginner, the novice tends to want to put everything on stands, on a slab, because it's more reasonable to purchase.
right.
But it's not necessarily the best kind of stand to use.
No, because it's, well, for one thing, it doesn't elevate it. It doesn't elevate your main item, yeah. So that's, okay, let's see. Any other questions?
Would you ever consider using an oversized stand and putting an accent plant on the same stand as the tree?
No. I see, no. Yeah, no, they really have one item per stand, yeah. I've seen them where they have this irregular slab, and they'll put a tree on there with a little accent off to the side, and really that's a kind of a no-no. It's just they do that because there's a little squiggle of a piece of wood over there, so they think, oh, I gotta put something on there. But each stand should be on under each tree. Yeah, that's a good question. Great question. Okay, any other questions? I don't know if I helped anybody today, but okay. Well, thank you for having me.